Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Komal, moderator for this conference call. Before we begin with, I would like to extend my warm welcome to all of you for joining us today. On board, we have with us today Mr. Vineet Agarwal, Managing Director, and Mr. Ashish Tiwari, Group CFO. At this moment, all participants are in listen-only mode. Later, we will conduct the question and answer session. At that time, if any participant has any question, they can use the raise hand feature in Zoom call and wait for his or her turn to ask a question. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I would now request Mr. Ashish Tiwari to embark on this meeting. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Komal, and good evening to all of you for again joining this call. I hope that all of you are safe and doing fine. To begin with, we would have a earning presentation which is updated for Q1, and then we will be open to questions from the participant. Now I would like to invite Mr. Agarwal for his opening remark and the earning presentation. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashish. Thank you, Komal. Can you put up the presentation, please? Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today for the earnings presentation for Q1 of TCI. We are pleased to say that we had a good quarter in spite of the lockdowns in the middle of the quarter with the second wave. However, the divisions have done reasonably well and have gotten to some semblance of what we are looking towards our target. So just I'll quickly go through some of the points and then we can take question and answers. This is the group structure. As you're aware, we are close to 600-700 crores in $600 million in revenue and about roughly $1.25 billion in terms of market cap now. Next slide, please. We are aware of the industry growth drivers, so predominantly consumer-driven changes that are happening that is really helping the logistics sector. Simultaneously, customer-driven changes are also quite rapid and they are essentially also changing because of the pandemic. For example, several companies are looking for more stock from moving from just in time to just in case. So that means that more demand for warehousing is also started to increase. And several large customers are talking about a full holistic 4PL, fourth party logistics solutions. So that also is an interesting trend that we have started to observe. The industry is poised for a lot of changes and growth in line with GDP growth, as well as the fact that logistics sector per se is quite underrepresented in the country as a whole and extremely fragmented. So the ability for us to grow here is quite high. Several regulatory changes are helping to formalize this industry, as well as formalize many of our customers who want to work with organized players like us, specifically using the use of GST or e-way bills and e-invoicing is all helping. Clearly, infrastructure is going to be a big driver for us in terms of moving up the rankings for national on the logistics performance index globally. Next slide, please. Apart from the strategy that we have, one of the few things that we do very well is, and those are now clearly our USPs, are the fact that we have a wide range of services amongst, and everything is internal. So that gives us the confidence to really service customers much better. And also that gives us higher margins also in some cases because we are able to cut out some middlemen. Our strong multimodal network, we are truly a multimodal company now. We're using all three modes of transport. All our operations are very tech driven, and we incubate new areas and new businesses segments on a regular basis. And that's a culture that is in the organization which is very strong, that we are able to understand customer needs and position ourselves well. Next slide, please. So in terms of the range of services, you can see we cover almost everything and a huge range of verticals. The presentation will be available on our website as well as after this meeting. Benefit for customers are that we provide a single window solution. We bring about certain economies of scale, and this sort of helps us to capture a larger wallet share amongst our customers. Next slide, please. In terms of the multimodal network, we have 3 trains. 2 are already with us. 1 is in the process of getting delivered. 6 ships, of course, the road infrastructure as well as the container infrastructure. In the last year, we moved about 2 lakh TEUs. In the first quarter, we moved about 32,000 of them. We also moved about 200 trains in the last quarter versus about 1,300 in the full year for FY21. So these are all full trains that we have moved. In terms of the incubation, we see a good growth opportunities in several sectors, and we are very well positioned in all of these: chemical, pharma, the agriculture side, e-commerce, cold chain, and of course our neighboring countries, the subsidiaries that we have. We are seeing very good traction in many of these places. So we believe that these are the opportunities that translate into higher growth opportunities for us in the future and keep up the growth trajectory for us as a group. Next slide, please. I mentioned about technology, and that's very ubiquitous to us. We use it from our not only from a customer interface perspective, but from our own organizational employee perspective, where almost everything is app driven. All our workflows are also available online on a mobile or a tablet. So people are getting accustomed to using this on a very regular basis. Next slide, please. In terms of the highlights for the quarter, it is not really comparable to Q1 of last year because of the lockdowns. We know that the last year the lockdowns were more supply side lockdowns because companies were shut, factories were shut, and also there was an impact on the demand side. This time around it is more on the demand side. Factories are not that badly shut. Some are certainly in states like Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, etc. We did see a crunch in April and May. But broadly speaking, it was not a national lockdown. So there was a certain amount of business volume that continued, and we were able to grow at about 71% over the last quarter from a revenue perspective. We've really worked hard on our receivables, and though it's tightened a little bit in the last few weeks, but we feel that we still have strength to pull through some of the receivables, and the cash availability that we have out of our limits is almost complete. We've not utilized the limits at all. In fact, we've paid off several of our long-term loans as well, long-term high-cost loans rather, and we are at a good number of only about 150 odd crores in terms of borrowings at the end of the quarter. I talked a little bit about the robust pipeline that is quite strong right now. We have good traction with a lot of companies, and we are seeing that, in cases where road infrastructure is slow because of lockdowns, etc., our other businesses, the rail, the sea, have all helped us in a certain amount of volume movement. Next slide, please. I'll talk a little bit about each division now. Moving on to the next slide about the freight business. That the next slide, please. Freight business is essentially our largest business. We operate 3,500 trucks at any given time. Mostly all 4,500 trucks at any given time. Mostly all are from the market or leased. We have a 700 branch network here as well, and provide a whole range of services, both FTL and LTL, because we've seen customers want both of those. They don't want only LTL or only FTL, like some of our competitors are focused on. We also have a strong key account management system so that we are managing large customer requirements at a pan-India basis quite seamlessly. Next slide, please. Freight business grew at about 82% in the quarter, and margins are also in line with what we achieved in Q4. In fact, it's slightly better as well. LTL has started to show some trends for pickup. In the last quarter, of course, we got hit in May, but subsequently it started coming back in June. And we are confident of achieving our target to get to 40% of LTL business as we go ahead. The ROCs in this business have also, as you have been seeing, steadily improving over the last few years. And based on the current trends, we think we should be able to cross 20% in terms of ROC for this quarter, for this financial year. In the supply chain business, broadly speaking, we are present in all areas of supply chain management. Of course, auto is about 75 to 80%. And as you're aware, auto for us is not just automotive four-wheelers, but we also do two-wheelers, earth-moving equipment, tractors, and so on. We have a very strong multimodal distribution network, again, quite unique to the industry, where we have created a hub and spoke system for many auto majors for their finished goods. And these help them to service their dealers more promptly across the country. And some of these hubs are also multi-user hubs. So we use both a combination of rail and road to service the dealers from these hubs. Supply chain solution provides from conceptualization of the supply chains to final execution, all kinds of services, including 3PL, 4PL, as well as control tower solutions. We have a large warehousing base over here of about 12 million square foot of space. Next slide, please. And own about 1,000 odd vehicles as well. The business grew at about 100% over the last year. Again, because in the first quarter of last year, we got heavily affected by auto sales, and that brought down the revenues and subsequently the margins as well. But we are in line towards the growth targets for this division as well. The trends that we are seeing in terms of automotive or FMCG are decent. However, there are some cost pressures because of increased fuel prices, and the transfer of those fuel price increases are underway to our clients. Next slide, please. The Seaways business, as you know, we own 6 ships. 1 ship was sold in February of this year. The business has been very steady, and we've been able to grow quite rapidly also, in spite of the fact that we do not have enough vessels right now. Clients have been using many of these services because of green logistics also. Next slide. And the business has also grown by about 70%. In the last quarter of the last financial year, the business was still relatively okay because road sector was quite badly affected. So the growth has been about 70%. We have been able to get a good amount of return cargo from Myanmar. As you know, 4 of our ships operate on the east coast from Chennai to Port Blair. So we've been calling on Myanmar, and we've got good cargo back. Freight rates have increased quite dramatically on the international markets, as you're aware. We, of course, operate only on the domestic market, barring this little bit movement that we've done towards Myanmar. The margins are better because we are almost all the ships under operation. Only from this quarter, that is Q2 onwards, we have dry docks that are scheduled, and they are all one after the other. Every quarter we will have 1 dry dock per ship going forward. Though fuel prices are still on the higher side, they have not increased much. That is the bunker prices. So the margins are more or less maintained of the last year levels. In fact, slightly better. Our joint ventures also started to pick up in the quarter. The cold chain business has doubled its revenues from Q1 of last year. And we are seeing good traction for a lot of clients, including pharmaceuticals. The Concord business we have, the business has been more or less flat over last year. But again, as I said, when alternate modes of transport were being used in Q1 of FY21, rail was of course one of them as well. The joint venture for handling logistics of Toyota, that is Trans-System, is started to pick up again. As you can see, it's about 170% growth on the top line, and bottom line has also started to stabilize. Overall, for the quarter, the business grew at about 70% and about 85% at the standalone level. The margins were, of course, much better at about 48 crores at the standalone level. At the console level, some margins are lower because of the netting off of the dividend income that we got from Trans-System. So that brought the netting off brought the PAT levels at the console level slightly lower. But overall, we've seen good trends in terms of profitability, at least for this going forward. Our debt equity ratios are at an all-time low, and we're definitely very well placed in terms of any kind of capex or any kind of acquisition if the opportunity arises. The business has been consistently delivering returns from a PAT perspective, or tripling in the last 5 years or so. ROCs in the business have started to improve in this quarter, though it might come down a bit once some capex is initiated. Next slide. The dividend ratios have, rather the dividend payout has been more or less the same. However, the ratio has increased quite substantially. And we have a good follow-up from analysts like yourselves, where we have almost all our buy rating. Our long-term rating with CRISIL is at AA positive, and with ICRA is A1 plus. Clearly, this is one of the best in the industry. From a CSR as well as a social responsibility perspective, HSE perspective, we have been very active, including during this pandemic in the second wave, where we moved oxygen. We also delivered oxygen concentrators, as well as right now even working on the PSA plants. We've moved close to 200 PSA plants for our clients across the country. And we have something called Safe Safar, where we are talking to a lot of our customers and truck drivers about safety. And on the environment side, we've added roof solar in several facilities so that we are able to save on some costs. In terms of an outlook, we are looking at the same 10 to 15% revenue growth and about 15 to 20% bottom line growth for this financial year. Given that the trend seem to be okay, we were a little skeptical as to how the second wave will play out and how the third wave is going to play out, if there is one. But with the kind of trajectory that we are seeing, I think we should be able to maintain this guidance. The capex has been a bit slow in Q1. It is also because we've not been able to find a ship yet, though it is part of the Q4 capex. However, things did slow down in the first quarter, so capex has been quite limited. I think depending upon how the ship is available, we should hit anywhere about 150 to 200 crores in terms of capex for the full financial year. The festival season is upcoming, and we are seeing that inventory buildup has also started in many places. Thank you, and look forward to your questions.
Thank you, sir, for the valuable insights. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin with the question and answer round. If you have any question, you may please use the raise hand feature in Zoom call. I would request you to start with your name and organization name, followed by your question. So, the first question is for Mr. Sunil Kothari. Sir, please go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity. Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Agarwal. Really commendable job during this very challenging time. So my question is, it's a little larger and structural change. What we are observing is things are moving from unorganized to organized. Formalization is happening more. You are using really good technology. You have hard assets also. So my question is, if there is a sudden spurt in demand, how are we prepared? I mean, it's a right, you said this current year 10-15% revenue growth and all. But looking at our size, we are just 2,500-3,000 crore company. And looking at our country, logistics, supply chain, transportation, and all these things, the size of market must be very, very huge. So, and the way you are speaking, I'm hearing you since last 3, 4, 5 years. The shift is happening, and we are preparing ourselves. So, on a larger scale, a little bit longer view, that how well prepared we are for the bigger opportunity and what the size of opportunity. And second question is, from where we are capturing this business. I mean, whom we are removing from the competition, or we are it's just additional services we are providing. So thoughts on all these things will be really helpful.
Sure. So see, the business opportunity is large, but we also know that 1920 volumes, or rather overall market was quite down, and then 2021 we were hit by COVID. So last 2 years have been a little subdued for sure, and we've not been able to really grow at that pace as we should have. But if you see our businesses where we had focused because of the long-term future, for example, our container business by rail, that business grew at about 71%, 70% plus last year. And then our Seaways business, again, that we had positioned for high growth opportunity, has also grown quite rapidly. So the other story is that how much business we want to take rather than what comes to us. And there we want to be careful in terms of not over extending ourselves, because a lot of customers today are going to give you business but not going to give you margins. And we know there are some companies who go for revenue buyouts versus really going for margin growth. Our attempt is, because of our experience in the last 60 years, is that having a strategy towards only revenue growth is not fruitful in the Indian market. You have to have a margin growth strategy, because that ensures that you are able to invest for the future into newer areas, into larger scheme of things, and able to handle larger things if and when the opportunities come. And we have several 100 crore plus contracts that we run today, or several in double digit kind of 50 crore plus contracts. So that way we are addressing that growth opportunity. Certainly the markets are getting more and more favorable. You are right that on unorganized sector is turning towards organized a little bit, as well as they are becoming not directly competing with us also. So they are becoming vendors to us or vendors to the larger companies. So that is a change that is happening in the competitor landscape as well. I think we also have to see that the gamut of services we provide helps us to really grab a larger market share from clients. One of the examples that I shared in the last presentation for the full year is how we started with a specific group, large business group, with just freight business. And now we handle chemical logistics for them. We handle food logistics for them by rail, by road, as well as cold chain for them. So the whole business is transformed from just pure transportation to lots of value-added services. And that business itself is in the 50 crore plus range for the whole group as a whole. So these are some of the trends that we are seeing, and I'm pretty sure that our positioning is such that we'll be able to capture some of these growth opportunities better.
And sir, are we prepared for this? I'm talking not about current year, but maybe over next 2-3 years. If economy is now after maybe 7, 8, 10 years turning hopefully back to normal course. So are we prepared well? That is what my question is.
Well, preparation is non-stop, so it has to continue. When we make these capex plans are also based on the fact that we are seeing a potential growth trajectory and growth opportunities. So clearly, we front-ending some of this capex is necessary, and that's the idea. So yes, we are getting ready. We are ready in many places. We can take up larger volumes. You saw the fourth quarter. I mean, we've done 700 crores in terms of consolidated revenue in Q1. We did 900 crores in Q4 of FY21. So we have the potential, we have the capabilities to grow also as the opportunity comes.
Right. And sir, last question, just some understanding on suppose some clients, like you said, big clients, 50 crore, 100 crore revenue they provide, they give to us. They are ultimately they are at a cost benefit. They'll be paying you overall. Will there be savings in terms of their efforts and costs after giving every contract and every services taken from you?
Well, they look at not just a cost benefit, but also the fact that we are able to provide an integrated solution. Because many times the customer says that, look, I need warehousing, but I also need a cold chain warehousing. So for example, that's where our divisions or our different companies that we have come into play. So we provide an integrated solution rather than just looking at a cost solution. And that is what is the unique factor that we bring.
Thanks a lot, sir. Wish you good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Ms. Shalini. Ma'am, please go ahead. Ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Sir, I had a couple of questions. So the first one is, how did you get this kind of 71% growth? Because even though you had almost a 40% decline in the previous quarter, as in the first quarter financial year 21, but then even this year, at least for the whole of May, most of the country was shut down. And, before shutting down also, there's a slowdown in activity, and even after the lockdown is opened. So how did you get this kind of growth? Yeah.
Well, as I said, this time around, this was not so much of a demand-led shutdown, supply-led shutdown, but a demand-led shutdown. So a lot of the factories were not entirely shut. Definitely May was quite weak in terms of business, but June we did see a lot of pickup, and of course April we did see the hangover from March continuing. So April was also decent. So I think the overall trends were good, so hence we were able to keep up the growth.
Okay. And sir, I just wanted to ask you, in the transport segment, through the whole of last year and probably the year before that, we've seen growth below 5%, except for the last 2 quarters. So, I mean, and that is a trend witnessed across different segments in the company. So, I mean, in the last 2 quarters or perhaps 3 quarters, what has changed?
If you're talking about the last quarters of FY21,
Yes.
we saw business. I mean, the overall country had really started to increase in terms of demand, whether it was restocking that was happening, whether it was new production that was happening. When we saw decent growth across all types of businesses. So I think we are quite aligned to GDP growth, and hence we were able to capture some of that growth. And the trends before that were weak, not just because of COVID, but also Q4 of FY20 was also quite weak. So that way, the trends have been that as unlocking has happened, whether it is revenge shopping or revenge purchases or certain government contracts started to get executed, financial closure happening in some places, money getting released by the government, infrastructure spending starting. All of these things have helped some kind of growth for us, and including the agri side. So we've done a good movement in the last, I would say, 3 quarters, including now for movement of food grains and other such products.
Okay. And sir, now that you mentioned food grains, just wanted to ask you, is moving food grains a profitable venture for you?
Oh, yes, of course. We do multimodal movement, so using both rail, road and sea. So depending upon the kind of requirement by the client. So yes, it is profitable.
And sir, my last question is that even EBITDA margins are at near highs. They're not at all-time highs, but at near highs. So I mean, there is an increase in the demand for logistics, but what explains the high margins?
So some of the cost structures were definitely lower. For example, traveling and conveyance and all those cost structures, admin related cost structures were lower. And some other repair, maintenance, etc. costs were lower. Our finance costs were much lower since we were able to save money since we were able to utilize, our receivables had come down, or rather we were able to, our cash flows improved overall. So that helped us also. So few factors helped us in improving the EBITDA.
Okay. And sir, like going forward, you expect that the EBITDA margins are on an uptrend? I mean, it's not just financial year 22, but overall, do you expect EBITDA margins are on an uptrend?
I do see some cost pressures in terms of fuel hikes. How fast can we get those fuel hikes? Of course, employee costs have gone up. We've given increments to every employee. We've not cut anyone's salary. We've promoted people. We've not laid off anyone. So those costs also will increase. But I'm confident that with top line increasing as well, we should get some benefits on the economies of scale, as well as the value addition that we're providing with different services. That should also help us to maintain the EBITDA levels as we are at right now.
Okay. And one last question from my end. So freight rates, I mean, have freight rates gone up?
Yes, freight rates have gone up across, not just in this quarter, but previous quarters as well, for several reasons. One is clearly fuel prices that are much higher. Secondly, the capacity that is available in the system is much lesser because new addition of CVs has not happened to that extent, and specifically because either many transporters don't see the value of adding new capacity right now because they don't see a demand outlook, or they find the cost of the new BS6 trucks quite expensive. So these are some factors where we have seen that, and of course some imbalances on different sides where some growth has happened in some places and in some places things have gotten affected. So that has created also an imbalance in terms of availability of trucks in certain locations, leading to freight price increases.
So, how much have the freight rates gone up on a YOY basis?
It's sectoral, so I cannot say, but at least between 10 to 20% depending upon sectors.
Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Mr. Jasdeep Walia. Sir, please go ahead.
Hello. Sir, good evening. Thanks for taking my question. So in the presentation, you mentioned that, a lot of your customers want both FTL and PTL services, which is a bit intriguing to me because FTL services are available pretty easily off the shelf. So could you just talk about any case study here, just to explain the value for a customer for, availing both FTL and PTL services from you?
Sure. So take the example of a large company which is manufacturing out of 20-25 locations, and they're doing projects all over the country, and they need movement not just from their factories, but they also need it from third-party vendors. And they're saying, okay, so there's a project that's happening, let's say in Northeast, and they need to move 25 FTLs from different locations and several hundred tons of LTL from small vendors across the country. They need all of this in a consolidated service, and all of them origin points are multiple, and delivery point is just one. They need a single window solution as a key account where somebody can observe all of these movements, give them feedback as to where they are, because they are at a project site and project needs to get executed in the timelines that they have committed to their customer. And then they want a common billing system, common CRM, and they might say, look, you have picked it up from 35, 40 locations, but I want all this built in one location. So we can do that as well. So this provides a comprehensive solution to that particular client. And there are many, many such clients like this who want both FTL as well as LTL services across the country. You're on mute, Jasdeep.
Hello. Yeah. So thanks for that reply. So just the last question: what's the net debt at the end of first quarter?
I think 151 crores, right, Ashish?
Yeah.
All right, sir. Thank you. That's all from my side.
Thank you, Jasdeep. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Mr. Preet Nagarset. Sir, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, guys. So, Vineet, I just wanted to better understand the impact of not having the eighth ship. What would it be in terms of volumes or expectations for the ship-based division?
So that's the seventh ship. We have 6 right now. 7th was sold in February. So the 7th ship addition was anyways planned for Q4 of this year. So the impact is quite negligible right now in terms of our plans.
Okay, but there's a lot of movement on the ship side. Containers are in short supply. So would you have seen higher demand, higher business if the 7th ship was available?
We are basically our 98%, 95% of our business in our shipping business would be domestic cargo only. So really speaking, the international freight rates or the shortage of containers has not affected us to that extent. However, if we had another ship, it could have meant that we would have been able to add perhaps more services, but at the current cost that the ships are available, the pricing that has gone a little bit out of whack would mean that we will not really make money on it. So in that sense, we might lose a little bit of a business opportunity, but from a margin standpoint, I think we'll be better off.
Okay. Vineet, the ROCE profiles for freight you mentioned should be at around 20%. What about supply chain and ship rates for this year?
So supply chain currently is at about 18%.
18%. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we should steadily get to the 20% level also, depending upon some of the capex that might happen in Q3, Q4. Some of it would be truck related or adding the train that is impending. So which might bring it down slightly, but I think closer to the 20%. And similarly for Seaways, also I think we should get closer to 20%. We are already, if you see Q1, the ROC is of course much better, but for the full year it'll depend upon ultimately the capex. So yes, the objective is to cross 20%.
Right. And lastly, in terms of these 3 months, July, especially July, are we back on normalcy in terms of demand side as well, or are you still seeing some kind of lack of demand?
Broadly speaking, June itself, what we can talk about is, yes, was back on the same levels as last year. I would say at about 75% of March levels, I think. And I think these trends are continuing and more towards the positive side only. So as I said, because the festival season is impending and we are seeing that stocking has already started. For example, Onam is the first festival that is in August, and already we are seeing some stocking for automobiles, for example. Though Kerala is facing another wave right now, but some movement has also started in many of these places.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Preet.
Thank you, Ashish.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Mr. Krupa Shankar. Sir, please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity.
Hi.
Just one question on one of your initial comments. You had mentioned that there is some traction on 4PL and how that is increasing. And can you just elaborate a little bit on that and on which sectors are you seeing this sort of a trend emerging?
So the trends on 4PL are essentially customers telling us that, look, there could be other logistics providers, and you could be one of them, as TCI could be one of them. You manage all of them. So that's how a 4PL typically works. And we are seeing that some clients are specifically on automobile side where we have a lot of strengths. We are seeing clients actually asking us to do that. But broad 3PL type of contracts are also coming about specifically in the area of, let's say, chemical logistics or even in some FMCG companies as well. So we are observing the trends, and I think we are also a little conscious of the fact that it should not be a cost exercise for some of these, for some of our customers versus a value exercise. So if we are able to provide value, then only will we really try to get a bit aggressively for some of these contracts. Otherwise, we would like to wait and watch it.
Great. And one more question on the automotive transportation side, wherein we have added the new rate. So are you intending to increase this? Is this going to be the new way of moving automotive finished cars or bikes going ahead? And you're seeing that more and more rates will get added over the longer term.
Absolutely. I think this is a complete shift that has started to happen. Because if you think about the plants of many of these automobile companies are in certain clusters, whereas the demand is spread across the country. So for that, they will need to service different parts of the country more efficiently. And which means that today, if I am a dealer, I want to keep less stock, but I do not want to lose sales also. So if I order something, I want it in the next day, or if I'm a dealer and my client orders something, I want it delivered to him in 24 hours or 48 hours. And that's where a hub and spoke system will help. And in the hub and spoke system, it's most efficient to move things by rail because you can move bulk at one shot itself. So not just from our end, but the industry-wide change is is quite visible. In fact, if you see some data around the car carriers in the country, their numbers have actually come down quite a lot. But capacity addition has not happened to that extent in that space because some of this share has gone to the rail side. Whether we will add capacity is not necessary. We will add a strategic amount of rakes. As you know that we tend to adopt a middle asset strategy where we will take some rakes of our own, but we can also hire, lease based on availability.
So the one reason why rail was probably not used all this while was because of the mismatch. So you have originating cars coming in from the factory, but on the destination side, you have to move back empty. So, how are you tackling this sort of a problem?
Well, this happens even now, but even then it is still viable because you're still moving a bulk in one shot. You know that the cost of road transportation is much more than the cost of rail transportation. So clients who are still willing to use rail and let it come back empty because it is still cheaper than road. So that is one factor. The second is the scale has increased. You know, if a particular company based in North India was selling X volume in South India in, let's say, 4 years ago, maybe that volume is 2x now, which means that I can send more vehicles in the train easily. So that volume has helped. The third is that a lot of mixed loading has started to happen also. Customers are collaborating with each other to say that, okay, I'll take half the rake, you take half the rake. Fourth is these yards are also multi-user that we've created. It is not just one type of customer. There could be a two-wheeler, there could be a tractor manufacturer, there could be a four-wheeler in one yard itself. Because they're not really competing with each other. And we have created a level of sophistication also where we do certain amount of pre-delivery inspection, cleaning and all that invoicing for the OEM before we supply it to the dealer.
One last question on the cold chain operations. Just wanted to understand, so this service is X of your vaccine distribution, if I'm not mistaken. And, when you're looking at the cold chain space on a whole, how are you seeing the opportunities lined up? Because clearly over the last 3-4 years, we have seen a lot of facilities were already set up and they did not perform as expected, if I have to put it mildly. So if going ahead, what is giving the confidence on the cold chain side is something which I wanted to pick your brain on.
So the past, you're absolutely right in terms of the it was very investment heavy. It was very capex heavy, and most of the companies that were in the cold chain space were essentially adding own capacity, whether it is in the form of trucks or storage, and that really it's a challenge specifically in conditions where the market is not really conducive. If there's a lockdown, or essentially many of these assets also tend to become quite old, quite fast, as well as, let's say, if you invest into a cold storage facility and it consumes a lot of energy, and if energy costs have gone up, then that starts affecting you. So our strategy here is that look at, again, a middle asset strategy, own certain key assets, but rent or lease from the market as well. What we've observed in the last 3-4 years is the changing trends towards for many areas, including the fact that the growth of QSRs, the growth of cloud kitchens, dark kitchens, those have added on. The fact that several food ready-to-eat kind of companies have come about. The areas around pharmaceuticals where, of course, some of it is vaccine logistics, but beyond that also a lot of pharma companies are now starting to look at not just cold as in 0 to 10 degrees, but also ambient temperature, because as you know, the ambient temperature in a truck in India in the summer can go up to 50 degrees also. So several pharmaceutical companies are changing their policies around how to service clients. And then lots of other such areas that we are seeing now where cold chain is required or cold storage is required. So it's turning around now, and we think that the next few years should see rapid growth. And the first quarter for our cold chain business, we've grown almost double that business, also from a small base, but that should it's trends that is visible. As you also know, we have a JV partner in this company that is coming in. That's Mitsui & Company. They also bring a lot of expertise here, as well as we are hoping some clients as well that they operate globally. So we are able to provide a more value-added and comprehensive solution to clients.
Thank you. I'll get back.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kripa.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Mr. Nitin Agarwal. Sir, please go ahead.
This is Nitin Agarwal. Thank you for this opportunity. And first of all, thank you so much for this that you had done in the lockdown by providing the oxygen transportation to the country. That's the very glad to know that you are proud of the country for you. And so my first question would be that which segment and which division do you see the very aggressive in the near term, in the 1 or 2 years?
Thank you so much. I think it's very difficult to choose which division will grow the most aggressively in the next few years. I think all 3 divisions have a lot of growth opportunities. Some of it is very specific to client addition, for example, in supply chain, where we are typically bidding for large contracts. So if we are able to get those large contracts, we are able to grow rapidly. In the second business, which is Seaways, we are essentially growing by capacity addition, which is adding new ships. So based on that, and as and when we can do that, we'll be able to see growth. And the freight business tends to chug along with GDP growth, as well as the changes that we're bringing, moving towards more and more less than truckload. So we definitely see good and solid growth opportunities, as companies are also moving to work with organized players versus unorganized players. Simultaneously, we see our joint ventures that we have, specifically the Concor business, the cold chain business, also doing good business going forward. So really difficult to tell you pinpoint and say, okay, this division or this business will do exceedingly well. But I think all of them have good positioning. Some of them will see rapid growth based on either capacity addition or client addition. You're on mute, Nitin.
Mr. Nitin, are you there?
Yes. Yeah, hi. Sorry, it was muted. Yeah, my second question would be, are you facing any cost pressure, or would it be continue in the future?
Well, temporary cost pressures arise from the fact that when we pass on the diesel price, fuel price increases to a client, and we get back most of that in the course of the following months after making those fresh bills, etc. So temporary cost pressures there a little bit. But the other admin costs, etc., are on the increasing side, clearly because once the lockdowns are over, things tend to move towards normalcy quite rapidly. So yeah, some amount of cost pressures are there, but I wouldn't say that they are exceedingly high.
Mr. Nitin, please unmute yourself.
Yes. My next question would be, are you expecting any margins pressure in the near term?
So I think the margins that we have achieved in this quarter are quite decent compared to the previous quarters. And Some of it is also we've got benefits from our Seaways division. So some might come down because of the dry docks that I mentioned. But in other divisions, things might pick up because of the volume increases. So it could be balanced, and we should probably maintain these numbers.
Thank you so much, Vinit.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Mr. Srinivas Seshadhari. Sir, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi, Vedant. Hi, Ashish. Just one question. Like in the two-wheeler space, now we are seeing this EV kind of shaping up in some form and manner. Which say one company is already a pure EV company is already selling, and another one is about to begin. So just to understand there in terms of how they are using logistics and where we figure out, like my understanding is the logistics footprint, especially on the inbound side, would be lower because of the lower parts and battery being kind of assembled in-house and all that. And secondly, since these are new companies, we don't know how they are making decisions in terms of choosing logistics vendors. So can you throw some light on both the aspects in terms of how logistics as a service itself stands for this segment, and secondly, how are we kind of present or kind of trying to capitalize on this opportunity?
Yeah. So you're absolutely right that the value, the weight ratio that you have to volume for a EV will be much lower weight because of the number of components in an ICE engine is far more than a EV. So clearly that would be a change that will happen to supply chains. There are, of course, some heavy parts also in an EV vehicle. So notwithstanding, the logistics is going to be quite similar depending upon how clients want them. So, typically for inbound logistics, which is production logistics, you have several models that companies follow. For example, Toyota follows a just-in-time model. Maruti follows VMI, vendor managed inventory model, and some companies follow a purchase model where they will purchase X factory for their products, for the components. So lots of different models float around. I think it will depend upon the particular company, what model they want to use for their supply chain. We know that many of them are thinking about both the combination of JIT as well as VMI. So that should be, those are trends that is quite visible. Apart from that, we think that the outbound logistics is going to be quite similar to how it is currently, which is the similar hub and spoke kind of distribution. Perhaps some of it will change where they might not even have dealers and they might go D2C. So that will be another element that will get added to the supply chain from an outbound side. And the broad fact is that we've been discussing with many of these guys, and I think a lot of it is an education process also for them to understand how supply chains in India work and how they can be using some of our services.
Okay. But would there be a concern if, say, some bit of shift happens to EVs, especially on the scooter side? Is there a possibility that we may be a net loser in terms of the OE base that we are trying to service, or would we be kind of present?
Not really, because ultimately we still have less than 10% market share of any of these companies, or overall, even in the two-wheeler segment. So since it is less than that, the impact is not substantial.
Okay. Yeah, the second was a follow-up on the discussion on the that car shipping cars by trains. So there, how should we think about this in terms of the competitive field? Like, I'm pretty sure the road logistics for the outbound car is quite competitive and there will be various options. But in this, what is the playing field when we think about competition? And is this a net new business we get by getting into this, or is this just substitution of what we were already doing in a better way? How should we think about that?
Ashish, can you go to that slide of supply chain, please, and on full screen? So the outbound logistics is not specific only to cars, but as I said, to two-wheelers, three-wheelers, tractors, earth-moving equipment. We do all kinds of movement in this multimodal via rail. Surprisingly, many of these products are able to move also via rail, also in the rakes that are available in the market. So it is not just the trains that we are owning, but we do also a lot of other movements, not including the trains that can be rented from the railways directly. So we have a lot of those also that we are using on a constant basis. And this is something that we were doing in the past also. It is not that we've started new. So it is just that some of this has started to change, where the last mile, where we are doing either directly from factory to the dealer, that has changed now, where the hub has come in. So it's not necessarily that it's a new business. The competitive landscape is also a little different, in the sense there are a few rail companies that are trying to move into the roadside, but no one who has this integrated play with the yards as well as the network, including the last mile, as deeply as we do. So certainly we have some benefits here, but and they will continue to remain competitive for us for some time also.
Okay. Just a couple of things on the shipping side. One is, you mentioned you're getting some return cargo which has helped you in the quarter. So should we see that as more of a opportunistic something which happened in the quarter, or is there any kind of a longer term visibility on that happening?
On specifically for
return cargo for shipping, you mentioned.
Right. It's more opportunistic because the government had opened up the pulses import from Myanmar. So it was very specific to that opportunity.
Oh, I see. Okay. And since there are some dry docks coming up, can you just give some idea on what we should expect on the shipping side on a full year basis in terms of revenues and profitability?
So I think the revenue side, we should possibly look at a 5-10% top line growth, because we don't have one of the ships that we had in FY, in the one that we sold in February. If you are able to add a fourth ship, eighth ship, that will help us. The dry docks are typically, each dry dock takes between 1 to 2 months. So the ships are out for that much period. But we had a few dry docks last year also, that is FY21. So it should not affect our volumes too much. And most of the dry dock costs are capitalized. So from a margin perspective, the impact is also limited. But I think, and I think we should be able to maintain this. Right now it's about 30% EBITDA. I think between 25 to 30% EBITDA levels.
Okay, got it. Thank you. That's it, and wish you the best through the year.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next question is for Mr. Shivaji Mehta. Sir, please go ahead.
Sir, with the logistics being a sunrise sector and so many companies now setting up manufacturing facilities in India with the PLI scheme and the China Plus One strategy, do you think that this is really the time to probably go aggressive on expansion? Given the fact that we are in a sweet spot wherein we are present across different modes of logistics, and also in the long term, if you could share some target, in terms of say top line, where we could be in say the next 5 to 6 years.
Certainly, I think the fact that there is a lot of opportunity right now in the market gives us that confidence to look at aggressive growth also. And that's why if you see we are adding capacity as well as doing capex. We are one of the few companies in our space that has invested almost 1,500 crores in the business in the last 15 years. But the kind of scale that we're talking about with 150, 200 crores of capex yearly is something that we've not done before. So clearly we are trying to position ourselves in that growth, for that growth opportunity. And we really don't share long-term numbers because it's not fair based on what is happening with the pandemic and other kind of exogenous shocks that we see on very frequently in the last few years. So I think we would tend to go on a year-on-year figure if, but definitely we are looking at a CAGR of 10 to 15% on the top line for the next 5 years.
Mr. Shivaji, please unmute yourself.
Thank you. That's all from my side.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The last question is for Mr. Vikram Suryavanshi. Sir, please go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yes, that's Vikram.
Yeah, hi, good evening, sir, and congratulations for good numbers. I have two questions. One is about our express or probably LTL service business. So I just wanted to understand the nature of LTL service. Is it predominantly along the existing branch network we provide as a complementary service to LTL, full truckload and LTL as a complementary service, or we really want to full-fledged having a dedicated service for FTL or a parcel load with a dedicated sorting centers, and also enter into express, larger part of express business. So I just wanted thoughts on that, understanding that business, and do you have any non-competing clause with the TCI Express for express business?
So firstly, we don't compete with express business at all. And we don't intend to get into the express business. It's a group company. Why would we have two competing services in the same group? So clearly there is no reason for us to look at an express kind of business. Secondly, the less than truckload kind of business that we operate also has its own hub centers. It's a hub and spoke center system also, but it is entirely for the less than truckload business. There are a certain amount of dedicated trucks, but we also share them for FTL also, if need be. So it is not an LTL service which is like an express service. There are lots of customers. Let's say there are customers who are sending pumps. Now those pumps, they're sending 50 pumps, and the pumps are of higher volume, less volume, but heavy weight. They don't want to use express cargo there. They also want to keep it in one of our normal godowns and pick it up from there also. Each customer says, okay, I'm going to pick up 2 pumps and take it with them. So that's the kind of business it is. It is not very, we compete a lot with the unorganized players. We compete with sometimes with companies like VRL, ARC, etc. But it is not competing with the express business.
Understood. And the last question is about how you are reading the scrapping policy impact on the market, particularly in terms of tightness of or availability of trucks may get impacted, and if demand picks up from COVID. So how are we basically getting prepared for that kind of uncertainty?
I don't see a lot of uncertainty because of the scrapping policy, because I do not see a lot of impact because some trucks might go off the road. If you see the types of trucks that are essentially might go off the road would be in areas which are mostly on the unorganized sector, perhaps in the mining areas or even inside a state. So clearly, I think it's a little premature to think that it will have a major impact on the freight rates or just the capacity that is in the country. It can help spur some sales, new sales, But I also feel at the lowest level where these trucks are operating today, they're operating in a very unorganized manner. So I do not expect much impact yet, unless it becomes a very, very attractive policy in the long run.
Understood. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Vikram.
Thank you, sir. Here comes to the end of this earning call. Thank you so much for joining and gracing us with your presence. Take care, stay safe and healthy.
Thank you. Thank you, Komal.
Ashish. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and stay safe and take care.